For a moment, I want you to think of every single thing you still have yet to do in your life. I want you to think of that job that you're currently at. Maybe it's not really the job you really want to be at. I want you to think of the business that you might want to start later on. Maybe it's a book you want to write. Maybe you want to help more people in this life. I want you to think of everything that you still have yet to do. Maybe you're raising a kid right now. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about your significant other, or the lack of a significant other. Maybe you don't have one, and maybe that's what you want. But I want you to think of all of the things that you still have yet to do. The rent that you still have yet to pay, the traveling that you still have yet to do, the goals that you still have yet to achieve. For a moment, think of that. And just like that, you've passed away. You're now in the spirit realm. Maybe you're confused about how you passed away, or maybe you know how you passed away. And when you pass away, it's so sudden. You go through the process of detaching from your bodysuit. Your soul goes through that process. It's the ending of your soul contract between your soul and your bodysuit. And everything is all said and done. You aren't able to go back. You aren't able to breathe more air into that bodysuit. And you have loved ones who are still alive, and they're grieving and they're calling out your name, while simultaneously you have this light that's getting brighter in the spirit realm, and what enters is ancestors and passed away souls. Maybe they're people that you have known in this lifetime and other lifetimes. And you have spirit guides coming through, and they're calling out your name, and they're joyous to see you. Oh, you've completed another soul journey. Congratulations. And the entire time, all you're thinking is, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I just need to go back to my bodysuit for like one more second. I need to breathe air in my bodysuit one more second. I didn't tell my partner that I love them. I didn't tell my kids that I'm going to be okay, that they're going to be okay, that I didn't tell them what they needed to know so that they could grow up and be happy. And oh my God, what about my traveling that I didn't do? What about that book that I wanted to write? What about, what about? There's so much that I didn't do. And now you're torn between the life that you already lived and part of your soul journey, crossing over and evolving, becoming enlightened after this human experience. Every soul faces that if they have a bodysuit. 171,000 souls pass away each day. Human souls pass away each day and are faced with that. Some immediately cross over because that light, maybe they were raised and to believe that that was what they were going to experience. Maybe, religion taught them that, the afterlife was going to be whatever it was going to be for them. And so whatever they believe, maybe they are able to release and let go and come to a place of self-acceptance. But what about the souls that pass away and in this life experienced trauma, experienced abuse, maybe even religious trauma, and so they believe that they are going to an eternal fiery hell realm because of what they did? What about the souls that feel like they did something really bad and they really didn't even do anything that bad, but they feel like they did something bad? Or what about if you really did do something bad? Like really bad, like hurt another human to the point of them passing away, or maybe you abused another human being, or maybe you were just kind of a jerk in this human experience. What about you when you pass away? See, we're taught in religion that there's an afterlife. Or maybe you were raised like me. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and I was taught that you return to dust when you pass away, and that there's no afterlife experience. So can you imagine going your entire life believing that something specific was going to happen when you pass away, and then you pass away and it doesn't happen that way? How scary that must be. Souls refuse to cross over because they're attached to the earthly experience that they had. And it happens a lot more times than we'd like to admit. And I've been in the spiritual community quite a long time, and I have heard time and time again, oh, Brittany, you know, mediumship is not all about crossing over dead people. You do it occasionally. And then they just walk away and just kind of shrug it off. And then I see all these different mediums, and all they want to do is give you all these loving and honest messages from their, like, your loved ones. And it's great. It's wonderful. And they give evidential information, and it's beautiful. But what about the souls that maybe you didn't have a good experience with them? Maybe it's a loved one who abused you. Maybe it's, you know, someone who passed away by unaliving themselves. What about them? You know, that is an experience, and a lot of times it's not talked about, and it should be talked about a lot more than it is. And the work that I do, I specialize in the psychology and spirituality component. I care a lot about combining both to help people work through emotional problems and relationship issues and just basically anything that involves your soul journey. I want to help you work through it. So I use different tools and techniques like past life regression and neuro-linguistics programming and the Silva method and, you know, somatic therapy, all these different options that are available. And I don't just do that for the living, I also do that for the non-living. So it's the souls that are still not crossed over, the ones that lost their light. And so real quick, a non-crossed over spirit, I refer to them as earthbound spirits. Those are spirits that are dead people who lived a lifetime, and they passed away, and they did not become enlightened, or they did not cross over. That would be what enlightenment is. So when that happens, any soul can find that light. They have to find the light within themselves, and then they can cross over. But they have to release this human experience. And a lot of them do not do that, okay? And so they emit out the fear that they still had in the, like, when they were alive. So if maybe they passed away by unaliving themselves, and however they unalived themselves, maybe when they were passing away, they were just so done, and they were in so much despair, that they were in so much agony, that they ended everything and they were running. They were running from everything, and they just thought, well, maybe I could just get relief if I just ended everything. And so then they end everything. Well, guess what? They're in the spirit realm, and that energy doesn't just go away, because emotions, thoughts, ideas, everything is a frequency. Everything is a vibration. And so that energy stays with that soul until they release it. And they become tethered to what's called the earthbound realm. Okay, so they're earthbound at that point. And so, you know, I'm laughing because I have so many stories to talk about, but that's in a nutshell what like an earthbound spirit is. But anyway, so I'll give you a couple examples of the experiences that I've had in sessions, and I'm not looking for earthbound spirits. I never go looking for them. I just kind of allow my spirit guide team to guide me in the direction of which we need to go in. Okay. And a lot of times it goes in that department. I'm laughing because I mean, like you can choose what you're called to do with your abilities, you know, like it's really never about the abilities. It's about how you utilize the abilities that you have. And it just seems like no matter what I've done, I always go back to this particular thing, which is healing souls. I love to heal a soul, whether they're still alive in a human bodysuit or they've lost that bodysuit and they've passed away. I just love helping souls. And there's nothing more enriching, because I've had to find my light numerous times already in just this bodysuit, and I know I've done it in other lifetimes as well. So that's what we're going to talk about. So first and foremost here, I just want to explain to you who I am. I've spent most of my entire life being a psychic medium. I've always been told since I was from a young age, that I am wise beyond my years. I've played with imaginary friends who actually were dead people who were companions. I work with different spirit guides who are of high vibration, meaning they are of love and compassion and light. And they're interested in the human experience and helping humans emotionally evolve. And so, just to give you an example, I grew up with this Native American imaginary friend who turned out to be an Aztec warrior named Tepi. And he would always appear as the age that I was at, and we grew up together. And he was one of my companion friends who helped me work through a lot of trauma that I've experienced. And he's always been around. He's so loving and he's so caring, and he's a goofball. And then I have Sarah, who was a psychologist in another life, and she loves doing artwork. And so she'll come in and show me these picture symbols, and they represent certain emotions. And so when I talk to certain people who've experienced trauma, or maybe I'm dealing with family conflict between a passed away loved one and a living soul, whatever the case is, I will call in Sarah, because Sarah just comes in and she's just so loving and so kind and compassionate. And I have a slew of other spirit guides that I work with, but that's just to name two of them. So I'm going to start with one of my first stories, I guess. This was actually a recent story. I was talking to a woman. She came to me about anxiety and depression and feeling like she had abilities or psychic abilities, and she wanted to kind of hone them. And so in our session, it took about 1 hour. I was writing down everything I was seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting on this piece of paper, which I then give to my client. But as I was writing it down, as she's talking, I'm listening to it's the frequency of her voice, and then because I'm listening to that frequency, I'm then attuning into more of her energy and what has happened in her life already. And it kind of plays out for me kind of like a storybook, in a movie. It's like I will see different people around that particular client that I'm working with, and it will kind of just all kind of come together. And so in her life, I could see her mom yelling at her a lot, and I could see her really kind of becoming rebellious, and she had this kind of behavior that was rebelling against the standards and rules and obligations that she had to abide by. And it was almost in spite of her mother, And so I thought that was kind of fascinating, and there was such a heavy emphasis on her mother. And so I was asking Spirit, I'm like, why do I keep seeing her mother? And then I saw her mother in the spirit realm, and I knew, okay, we're talking about someone who, has passed away. And so I looked at her and I said, how's your relationship with your mother? And she looks down, and begins to cry. And I said, your mom loved you in the best way that she knew how, and she's still here. And I explained that, what she was showing me. I explained how I felt. And then I'm also a very physical medium, so I generally will start either automatic writing, or I will begin to feel exactly how that particular human experienced their death. I will experience a lot in that session. And so for her, I could see that when she passed away, she was still very much so attached to her bodysuit, and that she had not crossed over. And instead of me going, oh, your mother hasn't crossed over, we must do a ritual to cross her over, I was like, wow, mama's still holding on to stuff. Let's talk to mama. And I started writing down all the trauma that her mother had experienced in the lifetime that she was alive. I wrote down what, she was telling me about raising her daughter who was in front of me, the client. And as I'm doing that, I could feel the emotion. I could feel the feelings coming to the surface that both her daughter was feeling, and then also this mother. And The mother was so attached to what she didn't do and felt like she had so much more to achieve and accomplish, and she felt like there was so much she didn't heal. And then she felt very guilty for the way that she treated her daughter, because she would always scream at her daughter, would always, she displayed a lot of actual narcissistic traits that was very traumatic for her daughter, which caused invalidation for her daughter on an identity level. And it made it hard for her daughter to move forward with her life. I mean, her daughter was married now and has kids and everything like that. And it's been difficult for her to move forward. And so after talking more in depth to, her, mother, I was able to see the root of the problem, why she had not crossed over. And so then once I realized what the root of the problem is, then I'm pretty much talking to that soul, explaining to them that, that's not a reason to not cross over, that, it benefits them to cross over. It is actually a beautiful experience, and that they're not going to be judged and they're not going to hell, because I've traveled so many different realms and I still have yet to see a hell. And so that was a very interesting experience. And when I opened up the portal for her to cross over, I had, oh my God, maybe like close to 9 or 10 loved ones come out of that portal, and they were crossed over. And so I had some cousins come through, some siblings of the mother. And I mean, I'm calling it out like to the client. I'm like, I'm seeing so-and-so, and I'm seeing so-and-so, and I'm describing what I'm seeing. She's in tears, okay, like just in tears. And, these loved ones, they're greeting this mother, and they're like, we're so excited to see you. We love you. Come with us. We love you. And it's just so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And there was so much heat being emitted as I was doing this. And after, the mother crossed over into the light, a very older gentleman stepped out of the light, and he said, thank you, Mija, thank you. And I started sobbing because number one, like, I got validation when I was doing that. And it's even making me want to cry right now just because it was so beautiful. It was so potent. And I was in tears. And I look at, the client, and I'm like, he's saying, thank you, Mija, thank you. And here's what he looks like. And she is sobbing. And I said, he says he's grandpa, he's grandfather. And I'm like, and I don't know, like he's saying a foreign, like some sort of Spanish name, and I don't know how to pronounce it, and I'm so sorry, but he's a grandfather. That's what it's interpreted as. And she just is sobbing. And I said, it was the patriarch of the family. And I start going on this rant about what his energy is like and how just powerful and calm and respectful he was. And he turns around and goes right back into the light, and the portal shuts. And the client and I sat there for like a couple of minutes in just complete silence, because it was just such a powerful moment. It was so, that was so beautiful to see and to experience and to be a part of, and to know that, my client found peace from that experience, because ultimately what that was family conflict therapy. That's what it was. Because I was relaying what the mother was saying, and the mother was passed away. And then I was relaying to, what the daughter was saying. I was relaying and helping the mother understand what has happened. And they both needed healing. They both needed that moment. And it ended up being one of the most powerful moments for that particular client. And that is just one example. I have this other example. This one is actually rather recent. I had a client who I've met with probably 2 or 3 times, and we never talked about her brother. It never came up. Every time she would meet with me, I would either do I was drawn to do past life regression techniques to remove trauma from your body. I started doing that with her, and, other times we would just start talking about emotional healing for her sons who are still alive. So it would never come up about her passed away brother. Well, anyways, this last session that I was in with this particular client, that morning I woke up and I was seeing this image of a demon. And I know that sounds crazy, but I was seeing an image like a white screenshot of a demon, like a tall gray entity with muscular abs and biceps, and the face was like kind of like a weird looking face and all gray, and then horns. And I was just like, that's not a demon. Like, even in the morning when I woke up, I was like, that's not a demon. Why is there some energy appearing as a demon? I don't have time for this. I had to go into classes and do other sessions. So I was just like, I'm going to put that aside because I don't know what that means. And I'll deal with it after all of my, classes and sessions. Well, in one of the sessions, there was this client, and we start talking, and we're talking about her, boys and how to help them work through stuff. And as we're talking, out of nowhere, I start seeing this image of this demon again. And I'm like, why am I seeing that? And so I told her, I'm like, let's talk about your brother. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, let's talk about your brother. Your brother passed away, correct? And she's like, yes, my brother passed away. And I was like, okay. So he's appearing this way. And it took me a minute to even admit that, because I was actually like not okay admitting it. And I'm describing it to her, and she starts bawling, okay, because she realizes that actual, energy that she's seeing, or that I'm explaining and describing to her, is actually a t-shirt that he would have worn all the time. And that if he could appear as a demon, he would appear as a demon because he felt like he wasn't worthy of anything. And this is just an example of a non-crossed over spirit who feels so guilty for the things that they didn't do or the things that they should have did different. And they feel as lowly and as awful as can be about what they did or didn't do. And so in this case, I ended up having a full-blown conversation between her brother and her. And at that point, her brother actually came out to her, and I could feel the energy in my body. Like, I could feel that gut feeling of like, oh, I don't want to say it, but please say it. And then once I said it, it was like this relief off of the soul that really never got to voice that he was gay. And that was an insane session. I mean, it took probably about an hour and 30 minutes. We talked through a lot of emotional issues and how it correlated into her life now, and how just having him around as a non-crossed over spirit is not healthy, because he emits out this fear, this anxiety and depression, because he didn't fulfill what he wanted in his life, and he isn't willing to let that go. And so we worked through it, and he did cross over. And it's been very interesting to see certain loved ones that, pass away and they immediately cross over, and the energy actually feels different. Like, I'll give you an example. I talked to this one woman, and she had 2 sons die in the same week. And it was horrific. One was a newborn, and the other one was a 10-year-old boy. And when I went over there, I was just like a little bit taken back, because I was just like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, she needs a lot more help than I can give her. And as soon as my hand hits that doorknob, I immediately knew that she had tried to unalive herself the night before. I knew what we needed to talk about. And I didn't even know that one of her other sons died. I didn't know anything. I just knew that somebody died. And so when I went over there, though, I also saw the 10-year-old boy playing soccer, and he was running around kicking a ball. And I was just like, wow, he's playing with a ball right now. Like, I thought that was cute. And I go in, and I'm standing in front of this woman, and I told her right from the get-go, I'm like, do you want me here as a licensed minister, or do you want me here as a psychic medium? And she said, I want you here as both. And I was like, okay, well, no matter what, we need to talk about how you had tried to unalive yourself the night before. And we need to address that because I don't want to leave you here, emotionally vulnerable. I want to make sure you have the right support because Spirit's really bringing that to my awareness. And so we need to address that. And she broke down and I held her. And then I started, doing mediumship because I had this 10-year-old boy showing up in the spirit realm. He was crossed over and he was coming through with his grandmother who has crossed over as well. And his grandmother was holding a baby. And so I said, okay, I'm like, so you lost a newborn. And I start describing what I'm seeing. I also describe that I see this 10-year-old boy and she is sobbing because I know nothing about this woman. And I'm telling her like stuff about him that I shouldn't know. And I'm laughing because I don't go to these places thinking, oh, I'm going to do mediumship. It just ends up happening. I usually am quiet. I don't tell people well, I'm not quiet. Who am I kidding? I don't tell people everything that I see on them. I mean, I don't go around going, oh my God, you have a spirit attachment. Oh, there's a demon. I just let it happen naturally. So I'm at this woman's house and, this boy, he is just telling me, Mommy, he didn't mean it. He keeps saying that over and over and over again. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just telling, I don't try to overanalyze the stuff that's being said, but as a psychic medium, especially the good psychic mediums, you got to be a detective, okay? Like, you got to understand that not every soul is going to come to you and actually come in the way that they really are, like when they were alive. And so you have to be really good with power of discernment. You got to be able to decipher between what is what and how it's coming in. And so you got to understand energy, okay? And so there's times where you do have to question stuff and you do have to ask more questions to get more answers, to understand more. But in some cases, you just got to spit it out. And so in this case, I was just spitting it out. I'm like, he's saying, Mommy, please, please forgive him. Please forgive him. He didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. And she just looks me in the eyes and she's like, he did it, didn't he? And I'm just like, I don't know who's who. Like, I don't know. What? So I look at the 10-year-old boy and I said, who are we talking about? And he shows me this image of this bald man. He literally, no name, but just gives me this image of this particular person who's alive. And he shows me this, how this man picked him up from his wheelchair and threw him on the bed, and his neck hit the back of the headboard, and it snapped his neck. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know how to explain this to the mother. And so I look at the mother and I'm like, first of all, your boy was, he had some sort of disability. He's motioning something about cerebral palsy. And she said, yes. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, he is wanting you to know that he can walk. He wants you to know he can walk and that he's having an amazing time. And he keeps motioning, I'm kicking a ball, Mom, I'm kicking a ball. I get to kick a ball. And she's crying so hard, as I'm describing this to her. And then I described to her the image that he kept showing me about this person and what happened as he passed away. He was not in pain when he passed away. It's just how it happened. And turns out that his father got custody for one night with him. And in that one night, that's what happened. And it's horrific when you think about what some people do. And it's not that they mean necessarily to do something harmful, but because of their temperament, because of the behaviors that have really set in stone within their personality, some people just are not meant to have kids. And she told me that he was being investigated by the police at that moment. And I looked at her and I'm like, here's what's going to happen. And I told her that it would be very swift, that he would actually admit it, and then he was going to go away for a long time. and like in jail. Actually not jail, it would be prison. And sure enough, within probably like the better half of about 2-3 weeks, I got the message that he had already been put in prison because he admitted everything. And so I talk about this particular story, not to just, ramble on and on about people and their experiences, but more so because that was an example of children that passed away. And the baby that passed away actually showed at first that it was a baby being held by a grandmother who had passed away, who was crossed over as well. This baby, though, actually appeared to me again as a 14-year-old boy. And so then I got to describe to this mother what he was going to be like at 14 years old. And it was so incredible to talk about that, because he had a lot of the same likes as his father. And then also, apparently, he was a lot like one of his brothers. And I think that's so wonderful that he would have had all of those traits. And the experience of having a loved one pass away, whether it's a child or a loved one who maybe has been alive a long time, maybe it's a grandma, maybe it's a parent, or maybe it's a sibling. There is no easy way to grieve that experience. And a lot of times that's why, there's these psychic mediums out here that are immediately like, oh, they got wings, they gained their wings. Well, I got to be really honest. I'm one that is really honest and truthful. And I don't see beings walking around with wings. Okay. I don't see, when I call in a past loved one who has crossed over, they don't have wings. They talk about what they are doing in the other realms and how they're helping people and things like that. I can call in an angel with wings, but an angel with wings is a multidimensional being that has never once stepped foot into the earthly realm as a human. And a lot of people will judge me for what I'm saying about that, but that is the reality of what I see. And so I can't really say that that's like necessarily accurate when I hear these psychic mediums go, oh, they gain their wings and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that's not true. And it doesn't mean that they're bad or wrong or awful. That's not how it works. If you had a human bodysuit, you came here to learn lessons. And that brings me to kind of a philosophy or ideology that most people don't adopt, past life regression. It is a very controversial philosophy that some people love to talk about. Other people are like, no, I don't believe in reincarnation. But I'm going to talk about it because I'm a past life regression therapist and I find it fascinating. So when and before you come to Earth, you go in front of what's called a karmic board. And the karmic board is these ascended masters that are there. They're so loving. They're so compassionate. They look at your karma, which is the lessons that you still have left to learn, the dharma that you've already put in, all the work that you've already put in, and where you currently are on that scale, okay? And then they help you and assist you in finding the next bodysuit that you're going to go into, and you get to plan out the next life that you're going to experience. And when you're in the karmic board, a lot of times you have no, you're so evolved. It's like the highest version of your soul. And a lot of times you are just like, you know what? I could have a horrible experience. I want to learn it all here on Earth. And like the karmic board is like, are you sure? Like, here's what's going to happen. Here's what will happen if you decide to go with this lesson. A lot of people choose the betrayal package, for instance. And I mean, when I say betrayal package, we're talking like some crazy stuff. Like, and the karmic board will tell you, okay, so that means that you're going to have parents. One or more of your parents are going to abandon you from a very young age. You're going to feel rejected. You're going to spend most of your adult life going in and out of relationships where the partner cheats on you or betrays you in some way. And it's all about the lessons that you learn from this experience and coming to a place of self-love. And then they'll give you some more linguistics of what your soul package is that you're choosing to embark on. And souls are like, yeah, let's do it. That's how I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn by doing all of this. And they sign up for it, okay? And then they go into the womb. And by the way, while you're in the karmic board, you also get assigned spirit guides. Spirit guides will listen to what the soul journey is. And a lot of them will be like, I want to be a part of that. I'd like to work with, so-and-so, along their journey. And so they'll be with you as you go into the womb, okay? And then you go into this womb. And, you are at that point from the moment of conception on, you are literally starting your soul contract in this bodysuit. Okay. And so when you enter into the world, you ask specifically for the parents that you have. You signed up for those parents, and they are prone to do certain things based on certain behaviors, based on their experiences and their own capacity of understanding. They're only going to love you at the capacity that they know how. And so then they come into the earth with you, you come into the earth, you experience life with them. And then you grow up and you start experiencing horrific stuff. You're getting cheated on left and right. Work is betraying you. You feel betrayed left and right. Well, guess what? That's part of the experience of being human. And you signed up for that lesson. You signed up for that experience. And then, maybe you start becoming evolved because of it. Maybe you go on a whole self-love journey and you take 5 years off of relationships. You start traveling the world. Maybe you start backpacking and you start coming into alignment with your soul's purpose. And that's where you see these amazing people transform their abuse, transform the experiences that they've had on this earthly plane. And that's pretty much what your life is summed up as. And then, as Spirit explains to me, the process of death, passing away, everyone has an expiration date. And yes, as a psychic medium, I can see the expiration date, but just because I see an expiration date doesn't mean I tell anybody about the expiration date. I still have yet to fully understand why I see the expiration date, but there's numerous reasons why you see them. But everyone has a specific date that they're going to pass away. Okay, and at that point, when they have fulfilled what it is that they're supposed to fulfill, and they've reached that expiration date, then their soul contract with that particular bodysuit ends. Okay, and that is the process of death, is when the soul detaches from the bodysuit that they have. Dolores Cannon talked a lot about that. And that's a good example because she did a lot of past life regression, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sessions, and her explanations are pretty accurate to what is experienced when we pass away. And I find it very fascinating, though, once we pass away, our souls, if we don't work through the trauma, the emotions that we have, and then we get scared, we'll get stagnant really quick. And that can cause us to become what's called that earthbound spirit, where we're stuck in the particular spirit realm and we haven't crossed over. And then what you end up doing, though, part of the journey is evolving. Part of the journey is going and crossing over. So what ends up happening is you come to a place of self-acceptance, and however you do that is how you do it. Maybe it's that you admit to your family through a medium that you're gay, or maybe it's, something different. Maybe it's just getting justice for your, the murder that you experienced, or whatever the case is, you need to find that self-acceptance. And you don't need justice to come to a place of self-acceptance. But a lot of souls wait for that. And so when they finally get to a place of self-acceptance, they begin to find their light within their soul. Okay, and when that happens, then they become enlightened, so to speak. And then they're ready to cross over. They're ready to go into the spirit realm. And when I say spirit realm, I mean they're ready to go into the next stage of the spirit realm, which is, I call it kind of like a waiting realm, but it's not really a waiting realm. It's like the realm before you talk to the karmic board. And a lot of souls will go there and they are enlightened and evolved past what they have experience with that particular bodysuit, and they've come into an awareness that they are a celestial light being experiencing the human experience. And once they've done that, then they kind of will, be able to move forward with their soul. So then they'll go in front of the karmic board eventually. And when they're in front of the karmic board, they're going to talk about what lessons they learned, the things that they didn't learn, the karma, good and bad karma that they built up in this lifetime. And based on that, then a lot of times souls will get reassigned to a new bodysuit because they need to have the human experience, because they still have not evolved. They still have not understood. And you can choose to not go back. But some souls cannot, depending on where their karma is. And so another thing that I want to bring out is talking about the process of crossing over a soul. A lot of people talk about going into the light, and they say, oh my God, I just told them to go into the light and they went into the light. And I'm like, well, that's kind of delusional. Like, if you were to walk up to a random stranger and say, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so, cross over, go into the light. I mean, that stranger is going to look at you like you're crazy, obviously, because they're a human anyway. But it's no different in the spirit realm. You can't just walk up to a soul and go, oh my God, you're not crossed over. You must go into the light. You must go into the light. I mean, you can tell the soul to leave you alone. I mean, you can tell any spirit to leave you alone. And they as universal law, divine law states, you have to respect the human experience. And so if they don't respect that, then you can call in some big boys, angels, that will come in and remove that energy, because they're not abiding by the rules of engagement of the human experience. Anyways, but when we're talking about a soul that has not crossed over, it's not as simple as just screaming at them and telling them you have to cross over and you have to go into the light, go into the light, go into the light, and just repeat it over and over again. That's not how it works. When a soul doesn't cross over, you got to figure out why. Okay. And so, and not every soul is going to cross over, even when you find out why. And you are not God. Okay. I mean, God is within all of us. I am a believer. I believe in God and Jesus Christ, but I will tell you that it's not as simple as just throwing holy water at a dead person and, calling in Jesus. Not every soul is ready for that. And it's not up to you to intervene in their karma. And so sometimes you can intervene. Sometimes you can have a full conversation with a soul and they become so enlightened by that conversation that you can help them cross over. And it's a beautiful experience, but not every soul does it. And so what I do is, number one, I ask my spirit guide team to kind of bring me what energy I need to work with. And so I will work with whatever clients come in. If they bring in, spirits that are not crossed over, I'll help them. I've gotten referrals from pastors to work with different clients who have poltergeists in their home, or they think that they have a demon. It ends up always being a dead person. I think I still have yet. Well, no, I've seen some really nasty energy before, but most of the time it's a dead person, and the dead person is just not abiding by the rules of engagement because they're not crossed over, and they're upset, and they feel like they have the authority to be here, and they feel really upset that they're being interfered with. And that's a whole nother story for another day. I have stories for days on poltergeists and hauntings and things like that. But for today, we're talking about what happens when you die. And, but part of the experience of crossing over a spirit, I will take out a pen and paper. And just like when you're sitting in front of me, if you're a human and we're having a conversation and I'm doing a session with you, I will write down everything I'm seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting, and understanding about the experience that you had. Okay. And so if you're not crossed over, I will sit with you and do the same for them. Okay. And so, and I've done this a lot, with different energies. I don't do this daily, and I don't even do this every single week. There are some weeks where I have like a abnormal amount of situations that I'm in, and I feel drawn to help a soul cross over, and so I will do it. But that takes a lot of energy. I mean, there is not enough water I can consume in one day for crossing over like 5-6 spirits at a time. That's a lot of energy work. And it's very draining, so I don't do that all the time. But I do sit a lot of times when I do cross someone over, and I write down everything that they're feeling, hearing, seeing. Sometimes the session can take anywhere from an hour to up to 3 hours. One time it took me about the better half of 3.5, 4 hours with talking with the soul to begin to help them work through the emotional issues that they were experiencing in this life that they had not let go of. And once we did that, they crossed over. And I have notebooks that I have filled over the course of the years that have passed that have just filled up with the different clients, whether they are not living or living. It's been an experience, and it's beautiful, definitely beautiful.